Perhaps, have you heard of a lot of people talk about it?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's something over the years I hear more and more people talking about, and people just bring it up in conversation. Oh yeah, I'm going to therapy, and it's a more typical thing you hear nowadays,
especially in the church circles.
Yeah,
right. Because I feel like a lot of the young adults I know, and a lot of the people that I around me most of the times, I hear it very, very, very often. Honestly, I don't know. I don't have anything against therapy, and all of you guys that are huge therapy people, I have nothing against it. But I do have a problem with just how I feel like people are talking about it these days, because I feel like it's gotten to a point where it's almost idolized. It's almost like too glorified, like therapy can fix everything.
Yeah, I mean, I do hear people talking about it more, and I do think it can be idolized as fix all, or everyone must go to therapy. I don't think that's the case. I do think it can be helpful. I do think there's definitely a place for it, but I also think that therapy shouldn't be put before other genuine relationships. Like, you should prioritize having genuine relationships where you're connecting relationally with people, as well as you might need therapy, or maybe you don't. But I don't think you should use therapy as like a scapegoat, where it's like, oh, I'm talking to someone about it. Yeah. But this someone you're not in contact with every day, weekly.
That's good. That is very good. That's a good point. That's exactly where my mind was.
Yeah.
Because, like, people are using it. People, like, glorify therapy to an extent that they don't want to go through the messiness of relationships with people. Yeah. And they don't want people to know them for who they truly are. And so they use this person that they go to therapy to as, oh, I have my therapist, and we talk through things and whatever. But you're not really, like you said, doing life with them, and that might not be necessarily the same thing, because I mean, there is definitely like being able to go to therapy and being able to talk to people that are expert in that specific area can be definitely helpful. But I think, like, if those people are not, they're not giving you accountability a lot of the times. You're kind of going there and you're venting or throwing everything on the table and kind of sharing whatever is going on in your life, and they listen to you, and then they try to help you understand or work through those things, and it makes sense. But if you are not consistently, like you said, doing life with somebody, and like you have someone who has a front row seat to the things that are going on in your life, it's different. It's just different.
Well, and I think here's a real good question is, like, you share a lot of the garbage with your therapist, but are you sharing that stuff with your wife, with your husband, with your close friends? Are you sharing some of the hard things you've been through? Or are you only opening up to someone who you don't really see regularly? You're not in a relationship with. It's just someone you can throw everything at and then go back into the real world.
That's good.
And it's like, no, we're in the real world. Life gets messy, and we should all be, open and honest and just sharing with those who are close with us.
There are some people that think that everyone should go to therapy at some point. And even some girls have made it as a prerequisite for a guy that they're going to date.
Really?
No, I'm serious. And I'm sure, like, people can leave comments that have, like, oh yeah, my if I'm going to date you, you got to be in therapy, and hey, that's your standard, and I get it. But what do you say to people like that? Like, do you think there is validity to that statement, or do you think it's a little bit too much?
I think it can be too much. I think I don't think necessarily everyone has to go through it. I think it can be a beneficial thing for anyone. And I mean, like we were talking about, there could be two extremes. And personally, like, I would rather go through lean towards the extreme where people are open to therapy, rather than the extreme of you hear people refusing to go to therapy, or like if a husband and a wife want to work through some issues and one of them wants to, hey, let's go to therapy, and the other one's like refusing. I think it's better to lean towards the idea of going to therapy, or going to a counselor, or opening up and sharing the different things that are going on. I think it's better to lean more towards that than what the other extreme would be, which would just be bottling it all in.
If people don't go to therapy, right, then are there maybe other ways that, because I think, therapy, I feel like there are other forms of therapy.
Yeah.
Like there are other ways that you can access the things therapy can give you without necessarily being in a therapy session. Yeah. Therapy is expensive for some people. Some people can't afford going to therapy. Those even who would want to be in therapy.
Yeah.
So what are some of the perhaps ways that people can still dabble into the benefits of therapy?
Yeah, I have a couple thoughts that come to mind. One of the thoughts is, we go to a church that offers counseling. And so maybe you don't necessarily need, therapy, but maybe even counseling for a little bit of time to work through some different things and talk through some different things I think would be beneficial. But even more so than that, I think having a mentor in your life, I found for myself, like someone that you trust, someone you can go to, someone who's also been through life, but also has a biblical mindset where you can go to them and as you share with them that, one, they're just first going to listen and hear you, and then two, that they're going to point you in the right direction. And I think that's something important. But I find that things that you may find in therapy, you might be able to find in other places, other outlets as well, and some of that being like a good mentor, a good friend that you can talk with.
I think therein lies the power of confession, like being able to come clean about things you're struggling with and the things that you're dealing with in day-to-day life with the people that you're doing life with. And I also don't think like you should have one mentor. I am actually a firm believer that you can have multiple mentors in different areas of your life, because we were in different seasons in our lives, and in every season I think you should have someone that is very well suited and very well I guess just they're seasoned basically in that specific season to help you navigate that season. So if you're going through you're newly married, you should get someone in that you can trust, someone you can actually talk openly. For guys, talk to someone that has been a husband for 30 years. They'll tell you, whatever you're dealing with, it's not new. I had to deal with that with my wife, when we just got married, and this is kind of how we navigated it. So for me, the way I kind of define mentorship is basically you find someone that has been where you're trying to go. And not necessarily just been there, because some people live in seasons and they lived in those seasons forever. But like someone who has actually gone through that season successfully. So if you're going into college, perhaps you're a young man, you're going to college and you're trying to figure out, how do I handle the changes that come with that? How do I transition? How do I build relationships with people in that space? Then you can find someone that perhaps graduated. They just graduate. They can be a mentor too, because I also think sometimes when we think about mentorship, we think about old people that they're like 67 years old or like 70 and above.
They went through a lot of life.
They've been through a lot of life. But when you measure or when you gauge your mentors by seasons, it's much easier, because you can even find someone that is can be even your age, but they've been through that season. And they can actually provide some wisdom and insight into what you're dealing with.
Which makes me want to make a point, too, is you might feel kind of young, like, I'm not supposed to be someone who is to be a mentor to someone. But, you might be in your young 20s. You might even be in your late teens, or however old you are, really. You've been through things that other people have not.
Yeah.
You've walked through some things that other people have not.
Somehow,
so if you've gone through college, you might meet people who are just about to start going to college, and you can give them, mentor them in different ways. But it's just like everyone's gone through a little bit of life, at least, and there's always someone behind them that you can, mentor, you can bring up, you can give advice to. So don't disqualify yourself.
No, that's good.